Your homework support, and again it's support. It's not for you to copy, but for you to get support when you get stuck. Can you graph this and recognize this is a line, y equals x plus 2. The slope is the number in front of x that's invisible, it's 1, and the y-intercept, the number by itself is 2. When we start our graph, we're going to start here at the y-intercept. So I'm going to draw a set of axes, very large graph for this. Probably don't need so much graph paper, but it is what it is. And I might even change the colors here. So there's my axes. This is the y-axis. This is the x-axis. So we're going to start at the y-intercept. So on the y, we're going to go to 2 and put down a point. And then the slope, we're going to go up 1 and to the right 1. So remember that slope needs to be a fraction. So I understand both rise and run. So we're going to go up 1 from here and over 1. And then connect and make my line. And you should probably have a ruler, make it nicer than me. But there it is. Number 2. I recognize it's a line. The slope, that number in front of x is 1/3. The y-intercept is 2. So I circle it to remind myself that's where I start my graph, is at 2. I draw my axes, going too quick, press pause. Really, you should do it first, right? And then press play to see if you did it right. That's the correct way to do it. So we're going to start at 2. So from the middle, go up 2. And then the slope is up 1 and to the right 3. And then draw your line. All right, turn the page. For some, your next homework question is 5. For some, it may not be 5. So if it's not 5 or 6, then you can fast forward to the next homework question you have. A cab company charges an initial rate of $2.50 plus 40 cents for each mile driven. And then it says, what is the equation that models, and then can you graph it? So this is a linear situation. The initial rate is the y-intercept. That's $2.50. Plus 40 cents for each mile. That's going to be the slope. That's the rate that's being charged. The word slope and the word rate, they mean the same thing. The challenge is the scale that I'm going to use. So I'm going to try to be as simple as I can with this scale. So 40 cents is the rate, $2.50. I'm going to count by 40 cents. So my one axis is going to be, this is going to be miles. This is going to be the money it's going to cost. So I think I'm going to count by, to make it simple for myself, probably count by 40 cents. So we have 40 cents, 80 cents, $1.20, maybe I'll label $1.20, $1.60, $2, again I'm counting by 40 cents, and then $2.40, and then $2 here. So this is going to be right here, $2.40. So I'm counting by 40 cents. So 40 cents, 80 cents, $1.20, $1.60, 2, and so on. I'm trying to make the axes make sense for me. Now the equation is simply going to be y equals 0.4x plus $2.50. So mx plus b. When I graph this, because I try to make my life simple, $2.50, that's like right there above $2.40. And then the slope, which means really 0.40 over 1. So I'm going to go up 40 cents and over 1. So it's already above, so 40 cents more is going to be just above, so that'd be like $2.90 if I kept going above in terms of there. This is $2.80. This is $3.20, counting by 40 cents. And then we're going to draw a line. Now, I'm not going to draw anything negative, so we can't have negative miles. So anything over here isn't going to happen. So it's only going this direction. There's the graph. From 0 on. So no miles at all, it's going to cost $2.50. And then every mile after that is going to be 40 cents. All of this is going to represent 1 mile. So 1 mile all the way there, 2, 3, 4, and so on. And that's going to represent each mile driven. So I actually didn't need this part of the graph, and I could have actually just drawn an L and be able to do it. All right, number 6. Again, you can press pause. and I'm going to think about the scale. That was a tricky scale to think about. This one's going to be a little bit easier in terms of the numbers. Matthew receives a base weekly salary of $300 and a commission of $50 for each vacuum. So we have to understand one of those numbers is going to be the slope and one of those numbers is the y-intercept. Which one represents a rate per? And the answer is $50 is the slope. $50 for every vacuum, each vacuum. That's the rate, and it's constant. It never changes. Every vacuum you sell $50. And is there a base, a y-intercept, a number that we start with? So our y-intercept is $300 as a start. So our y-intercept is like our starting value, and our rate is what we apply to our starting value. Again, I probably should have, whatever. I should have drawn an L, but I can't go back right now. So I drew the axes. This axis is going to represent the money, and the next axis is going to be the number of vacuum cleaners or vacuums. So this representing money, what would make sense? I have $300 and $50 each. So I think I'm going to start with like 100, no, 50. Let's do 50. So 50, that's 100, that's 200, 300, 400, that's enough. So, and this is just going to be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. This is how many vacuum cleaners he sold. So he's going to start with $300, and then the slope is up 50 and then over 1. So for every vacuum he sells, he gets $50. So up 50 over 1. And again, we're not going to draw the negative part here. So we can't sell negative vacuum cleaners. So only that. I should have really just drawn an L, but it's fine. And then draw your line from that. And the equation is going to be y equals, or slope, 50x plus 300. And x is the number of vacuum cleaners, and y is the total weekly earnings that they're going to have. Okay. Turn the page. Number 9. Again, if number 9 is not one, I said for homework for you. And then keep fast forwarding. A company started with 3 employees, and then after 8 months grew to 19. The growth was steady. What's the equation that we're talking about here? And so we started with our starting value is 3, and our slope is every 8 months there's 19 that, or grew to 19. So if I go 19 take away 3, that means the company grew 16 more in 8 months. So the slope then would be 16 over 8, which is 2 employees on average every month. So know where I got 16 from. So we started with 3, ended with 19. So how much did you grow? That was 16 you grew. Over how many months? So 16 over 8 would give me the slope. I'm going to be smarter here, maybe. So I'm going to draw like an L. And because all the values have to be positive for these real world situations, the y-axis is going to represent the number of employees. And the x-axis is going to be months in terms of the number of months in terms of growth. So it started with 3, and we're going to get to, well, it's fine. So we start with 3. So 1, 2, 3. And then the slope, every month thereafter, they grew to 2 more. So that means the slope is up 2 and over 1. I don't think that bell was correct. I hope not. Maybe my Glock's off, but I don't think that's right. That's not right. So, I don't know. Maybe they're still going to like figure that out or not. I'm not quite sure. There's probably going to be an announcement that says, hey, go back to class, I think. I'm going to keep going. So up 2 and over 1, and then we draw a line from there. So that's the slope of your line. This represents the number of months. And there it is. And the equation would be y equals the slope, which is 2, plus 3. So x would represent the number of months, and y would say how many employees that you have. So at 8 months, that's why you have 19. All right, number 10. You and some friends are hiking the trail. You start out with 70 pounds of food in the group, and the group eats about 8 pounds each day. What's the equation that models the food that you have left? So 70 is our initial amount. We know that's the y-intercept. Slope is 8 pounds each day. That's the rate. So there it is right there. What's the equation for that? Again, we're going to draw an L because all the values are positive. So I'm going to do that L, just the first quadrant. I know that the horizontal axis, or the vertical axis is going to be pounds. And the horizontal axis is going to be number of days. That's the units that are in the question, right? The pounds of food and the number of days. We started with how many pounds of food? 70, and it's 8 pounds a day. So I'm going to count by 8s just for fun. 8, 16, 24. Can I count by 8s? 32, 40, 48. I can do it. 56. Where are we at? 8 times 8. 64. 72, 80, what are we starting with? 70 pounds of food and going to go from there. So there you go. So there's my axis. And then on this side will be the number of days. So 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, and so on. Show the scale. So we're going to start at 70. So again, that's right here, right? 72 is right here, so it's like right there. And then we're going to go up 1 and to the right 1. So up 8. From 70 would be 78 and over 1. So there it is. So I went up 8. So this was 70. 70 plus 8 is 78 over 1. And then draw my line from there. The equation would be y equals 8x plus 70, where the x represents the number of days and the y represents the number of pounds. All right. Turn the page. Now we're going to do some quadratic practice. So can you, given this function, and that's like y equals x squared, what's the extreme of the graph? That's another way of saying where's the vertex. So for y equals x squared, the vertex is at 0, 0. Then it says determine the vertex of the graph at 0, 0. And that's going to be a minimum because it's at the bottom. Determine the y-intercept. Well, it's right there. It's 0. And it says graph the function. So here we go. We're going to graph this. This is not going to be just an L. So we need all the quadrants for this. So we're going to draw this. Again, if it goes too fast, you can press pause. So we have 0, 0. And then 1, 1. And then 2, 4. And that's enough. And then reflect them over. And then you can draw your parabola. And again, that's just y equals x squared. All right, the next one, look here at example number 3. Given this, could you graph this? So I'm going to write it as y equals x squared plus 6x plus 9. I'm going to graph it. So what two numbers multiply to 9 and add to 6? It's 3 and 3. And then we're going to graph that. Now, the only x-intercept is right there. So take x plus 3, make it equal to 0, and subtract 3. So the x-intercept's at negative 3. We only have one x-intercept. So because we only have one x-intercept, that is the vertex. So we need another point on our parabola. For this example, we're just going to use the x value beside negative 3, which would be negative 2. So we're going to plug negative 2 and get another point for our parabola, and then we can reflect it over. So we're going to plug negative 2 in for x and then solve it. So negative 2 plus 3 is 1, and 1 squared is 1. So we have this. So negative 2 gives me the answer 1. Then reflect it over, and we have another point. And for right now, that's going to be good enough. And we're going to use those points and be able to draw our graph. All right, turn the page. Here's your next homework question. Step 1 is to factor this. So press pause and know your times tables and see if you can factor it. So two numbers that multiply to negative 10 and add to negative 3. So that's going to be x minus 5 and x plus 2. And then take each one equal to 0 and solve it. So x minus 5. Add 5 to both sides. So one x intercepts at 5. Again, the best is when you try it first. x plus 2 equals 0. Again, we're going to subtract 2, so we have negative 2. And now we can start our graph. So we're going to find 5 and negative 2. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 2. So we have 5 and negative 2. What's the exact middle between them? And it's going to be right here. It's at 1.5. Bit awkward, right? Because it's half. So you think there 1, 2, 3.5, and then 1, 2, 3.5. So right there in the middle at 1.5 is exactly in the middle. And then to find the vertex, and I wouldn't blame you to use a calculator, because I'm going to use a calculator. Plug 1.5 in. I'm not going to give you a question like this on the quiz where it's a fraction or a decimal. But if you did have one, then plug it in and use your calculator. Where's my? I have a fancy one here. So 1.5 squared, subtract 3 times 1.5, subtract 10. And that's negative 12.25.
Students and Raja staff, please disregard the recent bell.
That took a long time between like the bad bell and like telling people. I don't want to know.
Thank you.
Goodness gracious, I got to go back to class. I knew that, but I thought maybe someone right away would say something, but nope. All right, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, and a little bit. So right there is 12 and a little bit, and then connect and make your parabola. We work through it together. It's going to be okay. All right, let's try number 2. This one's going to be a little simpler. Can you factor this? So two numbers that multiply to 4 and add to 4. Go ahead and factor. Press pause so you try your best. The two numbers are 2 and 2. When they repeat, we don't write it twice. We can just write down the one and square it. There's only one factor, x plus 2. Subtract 2, and you get negative 2. That's the x-intercept. So I'm going to find where negative 2 is. Again, press pause if it's going too quickly. That is exactly, there's not. If there was 2 of them, you'd find the middle. With only 1, that is the vertex. Right there is the bottom of my graph. So I can plug in whatever number I want to. You know what? Why don't I plug in 0? So if I plug in 0, what answer do you get? That's the y-intercept. 1, 2, 3, 4. If I draw the axis of symmetry here, reflect it over, that's easy. We could have also plugged in negative 1. That would just take a little bit longer. And you'd have a great graph either way. There's your parabola that matches that equation. All right, 2 left here. And then your homework is done. Now, this one's a little bit trickier, so we're going to do it together. We need to factor out the negative from the quadratic term. So I'm going to factor that out. When that leading term is negative, I can't factor it. So I'm going to factor out a negative from each number and know that if I multiply, it's going to equal what it is above. And then I just look at what's inside the parentheses. So 2 numbers that multiply to 1, and the same 2 numbers add to negative 2. So that's 1 and 1, and both numbers need to be negative. So negative 1 times negative 1, and when you add them, it's negative 2. So when I graph this, I got negative, and then I got x minus 1 squared. So that factor I make equal to 0. I add 1, that gives me the x-intercept. So I'm going to do that. I'm going to draw a set of axes and find that x-intercept. So at positive 1 is the x-intercept. Now, I only have one x-intercept again, so that is my vertex. There's not 2 and find the middle of. There's only 1. That is my vertex. So that's where my axis of symmetry is on, but I need another point. The easiest thing to do, again, is to plug in 0 for x, and you're left with the y-intercept, which is negative 1, and then match it on the other side of the axis of symmetry. And you can tell that when that leading term is negative, this parabola now is concave down because that first term is negative. So when that x squared is negative, it's going to look down. If that x squared is positive, it's going to look up. It's going to smile. All right, last one, then your homework's done. Number 4. We're going to factor this. Oops. Now, to factor this, it's a binomial, two terms. So it's not a big X. It's just what do they both have in common? So they both have an X in common. Factor that out. And then each factor make equal to 0 and solve it. So X equal to 0, there it is. And then 2X subtract 1 equal to 0. And then solve this. So we're going to add 1 to both sides. And then we're going to divide by 2. So one x-intercept is at 0, and the other x-intercept is at a half. So I'm going to make the scale make sense to me. So I'm going to count by quarters. There's 1/2. There's 1. There's 1.5. There's 2. That's my scale, so that it makes sense to me. So the x-intercepts are at 0 and 1/2. What number is exactly in the middle between 0 and 1/2? Can you see it? Do you have that number sense? So that's 1/4. You could also write it as 0.25. And to find the vertex, I then take that number. I'll probably use 0.25 and plug it in and use my calculator. So I'm going to go 0.25 minus 0.25. So I'm going to put 0.25 in for x and then solve it. So again, I can use my fancy calculator. I would never give you one right now with fractions or decimals. That's not what I'm testing on. And then I would see if I typed it in right. So 2 times 0.25 squared, subtract 0.25, I get negative 1.25. Oh, where do we got? So that's just a little below here, negative, and then I would draw my parabola from there. Oops. All right. Great job finishing your homework. I am proud of you that you chose to do your work. Hopefully you did your work on time. Till next time. Mr. G Math, over and out.